Let me introduce myself again. I'm Kevin Mullen. I work for LA Tech Biomedical Systems, formerly Westcore, here in Logan, Utah. And this webinar is mostly for Latin and South American customers and partners. And we're extremely happy that you're able to join the call today. Please use the chat feature on the discussion, or if you've called in on the phone line, ask your questions on the phone line as we go through this introduction to the new series of gram stainer that we've done here at LA Tech Biomedical Systems. I apologize, my Spanish is pretty much non-existent, so if I knew some Spanish, I would be able to speak to you in Spanish, but hopefully you can make out my English. I will try to talk slow, and so that you can follow along. If you have any questions, please, again, write your questions on the chat box in the discussion, or use the telephone to ask your questions. And we have people on the call that know English quite well, English and Spanish, so you can ask your question in Spanish and maybe someone can translate that for me. So again, thank you for being on the call today. So I'm looking at the video as much, the camera as much as I can. If you see me look down like that, I'm looking at my computer to see how the video feed is coming through. And so, you know, we'll be together for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. Hopefully this training is very productive for you, and it'll help you appreciate what the new features of the gram stainer are, and you'll be able to use the new gram stainer in your selling approach in your various countries. So right now, I'll just get right into it. The stainer looks fairly similar to our previous series. You'll notice that there are a few differences. We have a touch screen display. One of the other things that's different is along the side of the stainer, there's no longer any prime buttons. This is just a sticker, no prime buttons along the side. Also on the back of the stainer, there's some things that are different. And I realize that it may be hard for you to see. Let me bring the camera in a little bit closer. Okay. There we go. So the back of the stainer right here, we have 2 USB ports and an Ethernet port. We also have 2 ports for level detection. This is for the level detection for the D reagent, the water. And down here is the level detection for the waste. So we have a connection right there. So that's a little bit different than what you're used to. Let me turn the stainer back around. So now you can get a little bit better view of the touch screen. So when we designed this stainer, we tried to do 3 things. We tried to make the usability of the stainer easier than it was in the past. We tried to automate the cleaning so that people didn't have to clean their nozzles as frequently. We also tried to bring it up to date with modern technology, and we feel like we've done that with a touch screen. And we've also added a lot of traceability features. That was a big market push and need that people were asking for, is traceability. So we tried to accomplish that with a lot of the software changes that we've done with the gram stainer. The one thing that's a little bit different is the nozzles. So we still have 6 nozzles, as we did previously with the gram stainer, but now the nozzles have a white insert in the back, right here in the back of the nozzle. Each nozzle has that. That comes out just like that. But that's required to automate the clean cycle. So now, after every stain cycle, we have a clean cycle that's automated. And so at the end of each stain cycle, there's alcohol left in the nozzles to help keep them clean. And that piece is vitally important to help us keep the nozzles clean with that alcohol. At the beginning of each stain cycle, we run a little bit of a prime cycle where the reagents prime through the nozzles. So that's one thing that's different is the nozzles. Now we have the touch screen, and again, no prime buttons along the side, and then the items on the back that we'll talk a little bit about in a few minutes. Let me scoot back just a little bit. So one thing we've also added is a barcode scanner, okay? This is part of traceability. It allows us to scan the barcodes on slides and also on the reagents. The reagents will have barcodes on them now, and we're able to scan that in. And so that's why we have one of the USB ports on the back is for the barcode scanner. And plug that in. And we have a stand for the barcode scanner. Let me move the video camera back just a little bit more so you can see it better. Okay. Now this barcode scanner is optional. It is an optional accessory. It's not required, but it can be purchased with each stainer. Okay. Sorry, my head's cut off. Let me move the camera a little bit different. Okay, there we go. Some of the other things we've added is this is the 5-liter bottle for water. So now this bottle has level detect. So inside of it we have sensors here, and the stainer will notify the user when it is empty. And so they connect that to the back of the stainer using a cable. So here's the cable. They just connect that to the top of this bottle. We connect the cable to the back of the stainer. Fill this up with water, and now they have level detection on their large bottle. Same thing for the waste. So we offer this waste bottle, 10 liters of waste. Inside of the bottle is a sensor that when the bottle is filled up with waste, the stainer will notify the user that it is full and it needs to be dumped. And so that's a safety feature we've added so that people hopefully won't overfill their waste. We've heard that that's a problem in some labs where they forget to check it, and so now we have a level detection on the waste bottle. Again, they can connect the waste bottle with the cable, like so, and then they connect the cable to the back of the stainer and put this on. They would connect with the waste tubing from the back of the stainer to the waste bottle and just wait for that to get filled up. So that is on the outside, that's what the differences are with this new gram stainer. A lot of the differences lie within the software in the touch screen. And so I'm going to switch gears a little bit and show you how the touch screen works. And I have a simulator that's on my computer that I'll be able to use and share my screen with you so you can follow along from my computer. So just give me a little bit of time, I'll get that set up. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask your questions again over the phone or on the chat line of the call, and I'll do my best to answer those questions as I'm getting set up. Okay. So I'm going to open my simulator right here. Oh, and let me change my mode. Okay, getting close. Marcelo, I see that you commented that the sound quality is quite bad. Is it better now? I know you were on the phone call. Marcelo, can you hear me? Okay. Hopefully it's better. I'm now closer to the microphone. Also, I see that there was a question from, looks like Panama. Asked what the first bottle is used for. So let me get that bottle back. So this large bottle, is just a 5-liter bottle that they can fill up with water. And so we normally recommend that they use that on the D line, which is the water line, because they use a lot of water when they stain with the gram stainer. So normally we send this out as part of the startup kit with gram stainers. And so in the past, with our old gram stainer, we've never had a level detection system in this large 5-liter bottle, whereas now we do. And Patty commented about the waste. So the waste bottle, yes, she's right. We still need a waste tube that connects the waste bottle to the stainer. And that, nothing has changed there. There's a clear plastic tube that connects the waste bottle to the stainer. And that tube, so here's a used waste bottle. So this is the tube that they connect to the stainer that the waste goes down. So someone on the phone call, if you can please mute your line. We have an echo. And so if you can mute your line, and that way everyone on the phone call can hear the same way. So again, if you're on the phone call, please mute it so that you can still hear me, but we can't hear you. Okay, I hope everyone can see this screen now. This is the simulator for the touch screen of the stainer. So this is the main screen, and this is what, when you turn it on for the first time, this is what it will look like. So we still have a maintenance button like we did before, and if you press that, this is where you have the prime buttons. So again, if I press this, as I'm holding it, spray will come out of the A nozzle. If I hit this button, spray would come out of the B nozzle, and so on for these other prime buttons. If I press this one and hold it, spray will come out of every nozzle, all at the same time. So that's new. We've never had that feature before. We still have a pattern test. So if we press this, it takes us to a screen, and you can do a hub pattern test or a slide pattern test. And if I pressed, so with the lid open and without a carousel, if I press A, it does a quick little spray onto a piece of paper towel, just like we did before. That's how you check the pattern test. Let me just, then to go back, I can press back right here. We still have a volume test. So there's some instruction here that says hold collection tube in front of the appropriate nozzle. And if I press the A button, it would spray for 20 seconds into that collection tube. Let me switch something on the simulator. The speed is 10x, which means it's 10 times the normal speed, so we can go a little bit faster. I'm going to switch that to 1x right now, so this is the actual speed. There's some other features here, the beeline flush and 60-second prime that we also had on the old gram stainer. The beeline flush is a maintenance thing that people will do about once a month to help keep the beeline or the bee nozzle clear of debris. And it's fully automated with instructions for users to tell them what they need to do. The 60-second prime is something that normally you would do on a very first install. So when you're setting up the stainer for the first time, you remove the nozzles, put carousel in the instrument, shut the lid, and press the desired button. So normally on the first install you would do the all button. Oh, sorry, I don't have my carousel installed, so let me hit stop. I'll put in a carousel, close the lid. And so now it will prime all the lines for 60 seconds. For those of you who are new to the Aerospray stainers, when they come from LA-Tech Biomedical Systems, they come with alcohol in all of the pumps and all of the internal tubing. So it's necessary to prime out that alcohol and replace that alcohol with the proper reagent. And so this is where the 60-second prime is useful, because it gives a good purging of all the lines so that alcohol is removed. If you forget to do that, then typically the first staining from the instrument is not very good, because you're staining with alcohol instead of the proper reagents. Again, if you're on the phone call, please mute your line so we don't have an echo. Okay, so the 60-second prime is now complete. There's one more button here. We'll talk about that later. You can see right now that it is inactive. And we'll talk about that later when I activate it. So that's the maintenance button. We have a clean button, which the clean cycle is slightly different than it was before in the gram stainer. So now if I press the clean button, it just sprays alcohol. And at the end of it, so let me speed it up a little bit. We no longer have to do a reprime. We're able to stain immediately after a clean cycle. So again, those of you who are familiar with the old gram stainer know that in the past we had to hit clean twice. Once that's how we kind of got it in a standby mode. But the new stainer, we don't have to do that. The new clean cycle is designed particularly to clean the carousel and the bowl. We still recommend to do it about once per day, depending on use. They can do it more than once per day, but it cleans the carousel very well and is also very good to use to help keep the nozzles clean. But if you recall from the beginning of the call, we now have a fully automated system that cleans the nozzles after every stain cycle. And then at the beginning of each stain cycle, we prime the nozzles with new reagent. And so the reagent is fresh and new. And so you don't have to press the clean button as often as we used to have to on the old gram stainer. We still have the cytocentrifuge function. I'll get into that a little bit later, but that function still exists. You can still stain partial carousels. So if I have 2 slides to stain, I can simply press this 2 button, make sure I have a carousel in the stainer, and I'd press start. And it'd go ahead through my stain program. I'll go ahead and stop it right now. But you can see that if I have 6 specimens, or let's say I have 5 specimens, you notice I do not have any odd number of slides, and so if I had 5 specimens, I would select the next highest number, so I'd select 6. Or if I had 9 specimens, I would select 12. And that way, it knows how many specimens you're going to stain. Right here is the program part of the stainer. So you can see right now we have it programmed with a program called example program. It has decolorizer number 3 as the setting. Crystal violet, iodine, and fixation are set to medium, medium, and off. Now you can add programs or change programs by hitting this program button. So if I press this, you can see this example program is the only program that's listed right now. So if I hit this edit button, I can add other programs. So if I press add, I can name a program whatever I want it. So if I say I won't have sputum, so I can type in sputum and hit enter. Let's say for sputum I like a setting of decolorizer 6 with fixation high, crystal violet high, iodine high, and I can hit save. So now I go back and I have 2 programs. I can add up to 12 programs, so I can save 12 programs at a time. So let's add another one. So I could say culture. Sorry, let me type it in, because pretend that arrow is my finger. Okay, so we save it as culture. And let's say for culture, I like a setting of 2 with normal fixation, medium crystal violet, and medium iodine. So now I have my 3 programs. So if I have some slides that are cultures, I can select my culture program. And you can see the program change to culture right there with its appropriate settings. Now, it looks like I have a question. Can we make no more than 12 programs? That's correct. You can save up to 12 programs and no more. We felt like 12 was an appropriate amount. I'll be surprised if users need more than 12 programs, but you never know. But yeah, 12 is the limit on the number of programs. So again, so let's say I have some sputum that comes into the lab, so I can select my sputum, and let's say I have 6 slides, and I press start, and it would go ahead through the stain program that we've programmed for sputum. So again, this would take about 6 minutes in real time, but we're going about 10 times faster than usual. So that's one nice thing about this simulator, it's a little bit quicker. Okay, at the end of the cycle, you can see it says cycle complete. And if you open the lid at this point, it will take us back to the main screen, or you can press that check mark, and it will know that you're finished with the stain cycle. In the gram stainer, we have the option of either the 12-place carousel or the 30-place carousel. It automatically detects what you're using. So if you're using the 12-place carousel and you accidentally press 16 slides, it would still keep the 12-slide program in place because it detects the difference between the 12-slide and the 30-slide carousel. The instrument automatically detects that for you. One thing that's nice also is along the side of the screen you can see the reagent bottles. And as the bottles get lower, so let's say it's 1/3 full, you'll see the bottles start showing that graphically. And so as the bottles are getting lower throughout their usage, the users can see, okay, I'm getting close to empty on A, so we need to make sure we have A ready to be replaced. When it does get empty, this is what it looks like. So when it detects empty, it'll flash this red X. Also, if you're using the waste with the level detect, oh, I need to turn that on first. I'll show you that in a little bit after I turn that on. Now, Austin had a question, can we get the simulator to practice? And yes, you can, Austin. We'll make this available to you to practice. It's a very useful tool, and I'm thankful for our computer software engineer that was able to develop this software for us. So this is the main screen. It has a lot of cool, neat features, but we're just barely breaking the top off all the really neat features. One thing you'll notice is each screen also has this check mark, which is like a help screen. So these help screens are something that we developed that users will be able to use on the stainer, on the touchscreen display. I'm not sure why it hasn't came up. It should come up. I'm not sure why it's not. One moment. Okay, I'll figure that out. It's, on the stainer, it works fine. The simulator may have an issue with the help screen. I'll find out what's going on. But there's these help screens are like a little manual that's on the instrument itself that helps users know how to load the carousel, how to perform some maintenance, how to program different programs, and so on. So from this main screen also, you'll notice this I button, which stands for information. So if I press that, this gives me the information for the system. So I have the model, the serial number. Now in this case it's a simulator, so it's just a made-up number, but on the actual machine you see the serial number listed there. It's also listed on the back of the stainer on a label, but we have it also on the screen so it's easier to view it. We have the different versions, software, language, firmware versions right here. Also this part is like an odometer in a car. We keep track of the number of stain cycles or cytocentrifuge cycles, clean cycles. So this is useful because if you're a service person and you constantly have a lab that's having problems with their stainer, you can go in and see, oh, maybe they've done 300 stain cycles, but only 2 clean cycles. So then you can teach them, okay, let's do your clean cycles more often to help reduce the problems. You can also tell how much they're using it by that count. Also from this area, you can press the system setup. And this is where a lot of the really neat features for traceability are. So the first thing I want to show you is this users button. So one of the things we thought of when we thought about traceability is how do we protect the system? Like how do we make it an administrator area and a user area? And we thought about locking this area right here. So this allows administrators to enter this area and they can make changes from this, but users cannot. So if I press users here and turn on lock system access, it will ask me to set an administrator password. So it can be any password they want. It just needs to be 4 digits long and up to 26. So I'll just set it as 1111 and press enter. I have to confirm that by doing it twice. So now, if I go back out to my main screen, you'll notice if I press programs, I no longer have an edit button because an administrator may want to prevent their everyday lab user from making changes to the program. So if they turn on this administrator password, they can no longer edit the programs from here. Same for the cytocentrifuge. I forgot to show you this, but without the password, they can edit and add runs for the cytocentrifuge function. But with the password set, that edit button is gone. Now, if I go into system setup, I have to enter the password to get to that part. And that's how we allow administrators to get to this part and not everyday users. Also within this users button is the ability to keep track of individuals in the lab. So when we had the marketing feedback that people wanted traceability, we thought, okay, what can we keep track of? We can keep track of the reagents, the specimens, and users. And so a lab may choose to want to keep track of users. So I can create users first I can turn this on and I add a user, so I'll add Kevin. And the Kevin needs to set a password, so again, it needs to be at least 4 digits long, so I'll do 222 for me. I need to confirm that. I can add another one, so let's add Austin. Okay, and let's give him 3333. I can add up to 50, 50, so plenty of users can have access. So Marcelo, and let's give him 4444. So you can see how we have a list of users here. So now what this means is when someone needs to log in prior to using the instrument. So if I'm using the instrument, I'll come along and select my name, hit login. I have to enter my passcode. And now up here at the top, you can see Kevin is logged in. So everything that is done now, the stainer will know that Kevin did it. So if I run a stain cycle, oh, again, I need to close the lid. It will record that Kevin was the person that ran this stain cycle. I'll go ahead and stop it. If I ran a clean cycle, it would record that Kevin was the person that did that. Now, Kevin can log out by pressing this log out button, and takes me back to this screen. So at this point, yeah, Marcel?
I have lost my connection, my internet connection. I will try to reconnect now.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No problem. Yeah, I'm recording it, Marcella, so if you need to watch the video afterwards, we can send that to you as well. So now Austin can log in, and we can type in his passcode. So now Austin is logged in. So everything that we did now, so let's say Austin has some culture that he wants to stain, and it would record that Austin was the person logged in when that was ran. You'll notice here at this screen, when we select the user, we have the ability to select a time. So let's say, the default is 1 hour. And that what this is the amount of time between nothing going on with the stainer and the time it will automatically log someone out. So say Marcelo is logged in, and he forgets to log himself out. If it sat for 1 hour without any activity, it would automatically log Marcelo out. And you can see that that's adjustable. They can have it 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever they want. Now let's go back into the system setup. Go back into users. Now, one thing we can do is we can select Kevin and give him allow user system access. What that is if Kevin's a lab administrator, and we know that, we can give him that right to be a lab administrator. So if Kevin's logged in, and he goes to the system setup menu, he does not have to enter that administrator password because it knows that Kevin is an administrator. Other things we can do from the users is there's one more button, this enable run login. So I'm going to activate that and go back out. So Kevin's still logged in. You know, let's say Kevin forgets he's logged in and he goes out of the lab for whatever reason, for a meeting, or needs to go to the bathroom. And let's say Marcelo has some slides that he needs to run. With that, you know, in this case, Marcelo could run it, and but it would be recorded that Kevin was the person that ran it. And so with that enable run login selected, now if I hit start, it again asks me for the passcode for Kevin one more time to verify that it's really Kevin that's using the stainer. So Marcelo wouldn't know my passcode and wouldn't be able to run those slides. But if it's really me, Kevin, that wants to run the slides, I enter that passcode one more time, and the stain cycle starts and continues to the end. So that's the ultimate user traceability feature that really records what user was logged in at the time of a cycle being ran. We'll let this one finish. So I've talked a little bit about that we're able to record everything that's done. So within the system setup, again, we have this button, the system log. So this is the log of everything that was completed. So you have, you can see that Kevin's logged in. It starts, the last function that was completed is recorded at the top. So the last thing we did was we accessed the system settings. Before that, we completed a stain cycle. And down here you can see it's when we started the stain cycle, and you can scroll down and see the whole history of the stainer. And so this is where everything's logged at, and this log can be exported onto a flash drive using one of the USB ports on the back of the stainer. You can plug in this flash drive, and here you go. So you can plug this flash drive, and any flash drive will work. And you plug this into the back of the stainer, we hit export, and all the logs will be loaded onto a flash drive that then can be saved onto a computer. They save it as a comma separated values file, so that can be used. You can access that with using Excel or other spreadsheets. So that's where everything is recorded. So another feature that is new, and we see a question about it, is this language. We do have languages, including Spanish. So I'm going to switch to Spanish right now, and I'll have to use my best Spanish. Now, one thing that we don't quite have the Spanish all the way completed for the gram stainer. We have a few more words that need to be translated, and that is in the works right now. we'll probably get those within the next few days or a few weeks and have it fully completed. So if you see any words in here that are not correct, maybe send me an email and we can correct them still. Or there may still be some English words that are displayed on the simulator because we're still waiting for the Spanish translation. I appreciate that, those from Mexico that can help with this. So I knew that you would be excited about this Spanish translation, but you can see it. Hopefully everything is translated and now in Spanish. We'll leave it in Spanish for the rest of the presentation. One things that are not translated are the names of the programs. So you can see culture is still culture. We didn't program in a translation tool. But if I hit programs and I create a new program, you can see I should have a Spanish keyboard that comes up, so you can name it whatever you want using the Spanish keyboard when we're in the Spanish language. So yeah, all new systems that are sent out in the next couple weeks may not have Spanish on it because we still need to finish up this translation, but it will be very shortly when we finish this up, and all new units will have it, and all the other languages as well. So let me go back into here, into the system configuration. Now, one thing that was weird. Let me turn this off. I'm going to relock it. Okay. So here you can see I have an English string that still needs to be translated. So maybe one of you can send me an email with what this should be in Spanish. That needs to be translated still. So there we go. Okay. If you notice, before my edit button came back when I changed the languages, and so I'm not sure why that came back, and so that's why I redid that administrator password to make sure that that edit button went away. So I'll go into here, type in our administrator password again. Let's go here to the level detection of the reagents. So the default is to have a level detection on the tray turned on. So on the stainer itself, there's sensors underneath the bottles, and that detects the level of the reagents. So let me just pull this down. So there's sensors right in the tray itself that detect the level of the bottle. And if they want to have those turned off, they can select to have it off. Now you can see on the D, they can select the external weight bottle, which is this 5-liter bottle. Or sorry, on the D bottle, yeah. Or on the waste, if they're using the waste detection, they can turn that on as well for external. This is also where we zero and we calibrate the level detection. Now the large bottles do not need to be zeroed. They're a physical sensor. But the trays do need to be zeroed and calibrated. It's like a scale, like you're carrying a scale when you're measuring out weights. So whenever the stainer is new or it's been moved from one location to another location, we recommend that you zero the sensors. And so when you do that, I press 0. It'll ask me to remove all the reagents and press continue. Then it's completed. Turn those back to normal. Now, calibration is normally not required. You only need to calibrate if the zero is a long ways off. You know, maybe if the bottle is filled up to here and it's reporting empty, and zeroing does not work, then you may need to calibrate. But in order to calibrate, you need to have a full 500 milliliter bottle to get the proper weight, because each reagent weighs slightly different. You can't just use water for each spot. You need to use the actual reagent to calibrate. So normally you don't have to calibrate. It's really only a troubleshooting feature if you're having problems with the level detection working properly. Let me go now to these reagents. So this is where you're able to keep track of the lot and the expiration date for each reagent. And let me do a couple things real fast. I'm going to plug the barcode reader into my computer. Pretend though that my barcode reader is like on the stainer. So here I have my reagent A bottle. So on the stainer I would select change. Oh, sorry, I missed one step. You can see here these squares are gray. That means it's not active. So the reagent information, we need to turn that on to allow us to record the lot information. So let me go back out here. And in order to turn that on, I have to go to this QC button. Sorry, I don't know my Spanish. I can't remember. QC, and I can't remember. But in this button, we need to turn on the reagent tracking feature, which is down here. You notice we have it for A, B, C, and E. We don't have D because D is just water, and we anticipate users to have their own water, and so it's difficult to track that, but we do have the ability to track the date and time of when that water is replaced. So I turn those on, I go back out to this reagents button. Now if I hit A, you'll notice these are white squares instead of gray squares. And with the barcode reader, I just zap the barcode, and the information automatically appears. So this as a reference, the expiration date, the lot number, and today's date and time that is automatically put there, indicating the date of service or the date that reagent was put on to the stainer. So I can hit save, and now that's recorded. For B, I can do the same thing. Let me just make sure I hold it. So I scan the barcode. Oh, hang on, I need to have my simulator selected. There we go. Now that information comes up. So the proper information about the reagent, the expiration date, and the lot number. If someone chooses not to have a barcode reader, that's okay. They can still hand type the information. So if they select within one of these boxes, you can still select the proper code for the reagent, the lot number or the expiration date, and the lot number. So they can hand write that in if they choose not to have a barcode reader if they want, but you can see how easy the barcode reader is. Again, for the D, we can't enter any information, but we can save the date that, say we changed to put new water in the bottle today, so I can save that. E is alcohol, so they can use the barcode reader if the alcohol has a barcode. There we go. Oh, I wanted you to see that. You can see that if you have an invalid reagent, then it will give an invalid symbol. So I'm not sure why it's doing that. I need to double check that. But let me go back here to B. Let's say if I have my A, it has a not valid reagent because it knows that A should not be put in the B position. So we have that built in. Okay, there's a good question. What if the expiration date is reached? Will the system work or won't let us work? The system will work, but let's put in so let me show you what happens. So let me put this E full. Okay. So you can see my reagents along here. Another way to get to that same screen is just by pressing on any one of these buttons. If I click there, it takes me to the same screen. So let's change my C reagent. Let's 041C. Let's put in a date. Let's put in an expired date. So let's put in 2013 0404. And then let's put in a lot number. Hit save. So here you'll see the date that is expired is in red. But also out here you'll see that reagent is now flashing with a symbol showing that it is expired. And that will stay there until that bottle is changed. You can still run a stain cycle. It won't stop you from running a stain cycle. Let me run one. So I'll stop it. It's still showing that it's expired. And in the log file, let me go into here and go to the log file. Now you'll see that I started a stain cycle, and it now records all the reagent information, including the fact that our C reagent was expired. And right here it records it, reagent C expired. So you're able to look back at the log in case there's any issue with those slides that were stained. You're able to see, okay, well, the reagent C was expired. Maybe that was the reason why there were some issues with the stained slides. So just to recap again, to program the stainer with the proper stains, the lot numbers and expirations, they can access it by pressing right here on reagents. And they go to this screen, or they access it by pressing anywhere, any button along here on the main screen. They go to the same place. So a few more things. Here you can set the date and the time. Right now, because I'm using the simulator, it's pulling the date and time from my computer, but on the stainer itself, you'll need to set the date and time at the time of installation. You can choose the 12 or the 24-hour format, and you just change the hours and minutes and seconds by using those arrows, and then same thing with the date. There's beepers on the stainer, so when the cycle's complete, you can use this bar and make it louder. So you have the choice of how loud you want the beeps to be. Pretty self-explanatory. Let's say you gave an instrument to someone to use for a few weeks and you don't know what settings they had. You can restore the system back to default. So you can just set the parameters for staining back to default, or the cytocentrifuge, or the whole system. You have the option, and you just say yes, restore, and it goes through a process restoring everything back to the defaults. We'll probably do that at the end of this training. We have this one for a network connection. That's not active at this point. We do have an Ethernet port. Maybe in the future we'll make that active, just so you know that we do have the ability in the future. We're working on some laboratory information software that this would be useful for. So one of the things I want to cover also is the slide tracking. So again, within this quality control menu, if I select this, you can see I have a few more English words. Sorry, we'll get those translated here shortly. So I can enable slide tracking. So what does that mean? Well, if we have a user that wants to keep track of the specimens that are stained, they can do that. So I can turn that on. You can see this manual entry is also selectable. We'll come back and talk about that. So I turn that on. You'll notice now my home screen has changed a little bit. I no longer have the number of slides down here. And now it's asking us to load the slides rather than start the stain cycle. So let's just, for the fun of it, let's change to sputum. And now let's load the slides. So I hit this. So rather than starting the stain cycle, it's asking me for slide information. So, if a slide has a barcode reader or a barcode printed on it, this is where they can use the barcode scanner and scan it. And the information from that slide will be recorded. And you'll notice also the number of slides automatically adjusts for how many times the specimen's been scanned, or how many slides have been scanned. So ideally they wouldn't scan the same specimen 4 times like I just did. They would record, they maybe have 4 separate specimens that they would scan or more. So like if one specimen, this will be the same number because they're the same barcode. But hopefully you get that idea. Now again, they keep on going, and the number of slides automatically increases with the number of scans. I can select one and remove it if they accidentally scanned one that they're not going to. If they scanned one twice or whatever, they can remove that. At the point when they've scanned all their slides that they plan on staining for this run, they start their stain cycle, and it goes ahead and does their stain cycle. So there's a question, what type of code can we scan? There's about 14 different types of codes that we can scan that I know of, basically any type. Now, this barcode scanner is a 1D barcode scanner, so it is designed to scan 1D barcodes. We will have a 2D scanner that's going to cost more money for the barcodes that are a 2D barcode, like those squares that have a lot more information. But that can be scanned as well. I'm not aware of any barcode codes that we were not able to scan. I think all codes were able to scan. It just depends on if it's a 1D, a one-dimensional, or a two-dimensional barcode. So, and you just need to have the proper reader for that. Good question. So you'll notice now, if I go back to my log file, you can see I started a stain cycle. It was sputum. It recorded the reagents. It recorded that reagent C was expired because that's what we told it was. It recorded the slide information. It also recorded the number of slides stained, so 4 in a 12-slide carousel. And then it also recorded that it was completed. Now, if someone would have been logged in, it also would have recorded who was logged in at the time of that stain cycle. So no one was logged in, so that's why it left it blank. Also within this menu, you can see we have this preventative maintenance oh, sorry, let me go back. Let me talk about this manual entry. So if I turn on manual entry, I go back, this screen looks similar. Now, with manual entry turned on, you'll see I have an add button. So I can add, and I can type in specimen information now. Okay, so I'm able to type it in, whatever information we want to put in there. Or I can still scan the information. I can even select one I've scanned and edit that information. So I can say slide 1. Let's say I have 2 slides of the same one. And I'd want to name this one slide 2. So now I can press run, and it goes ahead with the stain cycle. Now in the log file, let me cancel that, I'll go back to the log file right here. And you'll notice in this last one we did, we put an M in parentheses in front of each specimen, indicating that it was put in manually. That way, in case there's a typo, you know, okay, was it put in manually or was it the barcode? So again, that manual is optional. This manual entry for the specimen identification. It's not required, but they can select the on or off, but that's the difference. Same with the cyto slide tracking. Cyto is for the cytocentrifugation. I'll get back into that a little bit, but it works similarly. So let's talk about this preventative maintenance. So if I turn this on, there's a couple of things that happens. First of all, now I have prompts that can come up on the stainer. So I can have daily prompts and weekly and monthly prompts that come up. Also, I can have prompts for control slides. So let's say daily I want to be prompted to run preventative maintenance. Every day at 9 o'clock I want to be prompted. There'll be a screen that appears on the stainer at 9 o'clock that just says, check your spray nozzle, check this, the hub pattern for the spray to make sure the nozzles are spraying correctly. On a weekly basis, I can select, say, Monday. So on Mondays at 9 o'clock, I'll be prompted of the weekly maintenance. So weekly maintenance includes checking the drain, checking the volumes. So again, they can turn that on and be prompted if they want to. Same thing for control slides. So say they want to do it every day at a given time, they can be prompted to run control slides. Activating this gives us that ability to have prompts. It also, if I go into my maintenance menu, it turns on this QCMP button, or Quality Control Maintenance button. And what that is a quick record of the maintenance that's being done on the stainer. So, with it turned on, if I go back out here and run a pattern test, sorry, I need to make sure I have my lid open and do a pattern test on A. At the end of my pattern test, I'll be asked the result. If it's acceptable, not acceptable, or inconclusive. So if I select acceptable and hit save, let's do it for B as well. Let's put inconclusive. If I go back into this table, that gets recorded, the date and time, and the result. So it's a quick way to see the maintenance, if they're doing their maintenance, when the last time they did their maintenance was, and what the results were. Same thing for volume test. If I do a volume test, say on C, at the end of that it asks me what the volume was. And so let's say it's 11. Let's do B. Let's say that was 10.5. I go to this table, and there the results are. Now there's a few features that the instrument can't detect are being done. That's what this button is, so we can register any maintenance. So one thing is we disinfected the bottles. So let's say they're using this bottle, and we recommend we disinfect that once a month so it doesn't get contaminated. So if they disinfected it today, I could hit save, and the date and time gets recorded that that was disinfected. Or we can check the drain, or I can clean the nozzles manually, and the date and time gets recorded for those as well. Or if I run a control slide and it was acceptable, then that gets recorded right there. A beeline flush will get recorded when they complete a beeline flush, following the routine right here. So this is a nice table if they want to keep track of their maintenance, make sure that they're doing their maintenance and what the results are. If I go back into the log file, you'll notice that that same information is being recorded in the log file as well. That other form is just an easier way to view it and a quicker way to check and make sure they're doing it on a routine basis. So one thing I forgot to tell you is, if you recall again, with this administrator password set, the edit button is not here, so they can't add any programs from this part. They still can add programs from the administrator area after they enter the password, which is right here. So they can, here are the same programs. So let's add one more. Let's say blood culture. Sorry, I don't know this Spanish terminology. Let's say they're like 3, high fixation, high crystal violet, high iodine. So now if I go back here, you'll see my blood culture has been added as a program. So that's a very nice feature for administrators to prevent their users or their lab technicians from messing around with programs, creating new programs. They can hide all that editing ability within that administrator area. one last thing I want to cover before I have Mike Farr come up for service is the cytocentrifuge function. I don't know if we're having a lot of people do cytocentrifugation in Latin and South America, but that's something we would like to have more of because we feel like we have a very good system for cytocentrifugation. But programmability works very similarly. So let me go back here and turn off the administrator password so I can show you that. So I'm going to turn this off. So now if I go to my cytocentrifuge, now I have an edit button. And so just like the stainer, I can add programs. So I can do CSF for cerebral spinal fluid. And let's say they like doing those. One thing I learned recently is some people here in the US are doing cerebral spinal fluid at 800 RPM for 3 minutes on a low acceleration. They can save that, and with it selected, and then I just go back out, I can select it and run it. So I first need to put in a cytocentrifuge rotor, close the lid, and run the cytocentrifugation. For those of you who aren't familiar with cytocentrifugation, talk with Monica or Eva more about it, and or send us an email. Cytocentrifugation can turn your gram stainer into also a cytocentrifuge. So it's like 2 instruments in one. It's a good way to have 2 instruments in one. It's a good way to deposit cells onto microscope slides. A lot of labs here in the US use it. Similarly, if I do set this administrator password, you'll notice on that cytocentrifuge area, let me go here, that edit button is now gone because I set that password. But I can program any cytocentrifuge functions from this administrator password from here, just like I did, just like I showed you before. So, like I said before, we're very excited about this stainer. We hopefully you're able to see how many new features we've added. There's a lot that we've added. It's very user-friendly. You now have Spanish that you can access, so your customers hopefully will be able to follow in Spanish. Earlier when I tried to show you the help screens, they weren't working for some reason. Maybe they didn't copy over to my computer correctly. So let me go somewhere real quick and try to locate another simulator. Bear with me. If you have any questions, please ask them. Now's a good time to ask any questions. All right, I'm gonna start a new simulator. All right, copy. Okay, there's a question about where we can get the simulator. Is it on a website? At this point, it's not. We'll put it on an FTP site with some instructions for you to use, and you can download it from that site. But right now, it's nowhere that's accessible, but we'll have it shortly, and we'll let Monica and Evo know about where they can send you to get that. So yeah, right now we don't have it located anywhere on a website. Okay, another question, is there a simulator for a hematology stain or two? Yeah, there is. So we'll make that available. We probably should have a short webinar at some point about the hematology stainer. We can do that sometime. We're planning on shipping our first hematology stainers, the Hematology Pro, which is the alcohol-based stainer, not next week, but the week after. So the first week of September is when we're planning on shipping our first ones of those. So those are very close to being ready. I can use some more help on Spanish translations. I have a few more strings or parts of the user interface that aren't translated yet. On the gram, I only have about 20 that are not translated. On the hematology, I have about 70. So I may solicit your help on that to help with the hematology translation, if you don't mind. But yeah, we'll have that simulator available, and also we'll plan another webinar to go over that as well. I hope this webinar has been useful for everybody. I find it to be quite useful. It's a good way to communicate, and hopefully the clarity has been good enough. Take you forever to download. I apologize it's taken so long. That's interesting. Okay, the main reason for doing this is to show you the help screens. And my computer is being really slow. I apologize, I don't know exactly what's going on. Are there any more questions that people have? Okay, so Austin, you're asking, can I repeat the administrator password? Yeah, it doesn't keep, it's like a hotel safe. So the password, you put it in one way, and it sets a flag knowing that it's set. And so it's looking for that same password to be re-entered to either access the administrator administrator area, or to even delete it. So yeah, you can use the same password multiple times. It doesn't keep track of the actual password being used besides setting it as a flag. Okay, hopefully this will work. There we go. Now I have help screens. So continue to ask your questions if you have them, but this is an example of the help screen. So I access this one by pressing the question mark from the main screen. You can see we have links and there are pages that you can scroll down. So people can use their finger to scroll the bar or press the arrows. And there's a lot of information about the screen and what the function's about. So here we have basic operations, so loading a carousel. So we have how to load the carousel. So the 12-slide carousel, 30-slide carousel, etc. Now I will say at this point, these help screens are in English only. So if I change the language to Spanish, these will not change. They're only English. Maybe in the future we will have them translated. A lot of the same information is in the manual, which is translated. So if some of you are feeling ambitious and want to work on your translation skills, we could make these available to you, and you could work on the translations if you'd like to. But at this point, they're going to be in English only. But let me go back to, say, maintenance and hit the help screens here. You can see I have a different set of help screens that we can access. So nozzle spray pattern, it tells you how to do the spray pattern. If you're not familiar with it, it shows you how to do it. What a correct pattern looks like, what an incorrect pattern looks like, and a lot of information. So these help screens are very helpful to allow the user to have some help on the screen there in front of them if the manual is not available, and it's very graphical. Okay. Yeah, okay, I have a question. Can you show us the nozzle again? Yes, I'm gonna minimize the simulator. Let me go back to a different mode of sharing. All right, discussion. Okay, so here's the nozzle. So it's for those of you who are familiar with the Hematology Pro stainer, it's exactly the same. There's no O-ring. The old gram stainer has an O-ring, but all the nozzles now do not have O-rings. And there's this white piece on the end that has a couple holes in it. And basically it's there to take up space so that when we do that automated clean at the end of the stain cycle, we can use a minimum amount of alcohol to do that clean. Okay, there's a question, is it possible to use a carousel of 12 and then a carousel of 30 if the customer buys an extra carousel? Yes, of course, yes. You can run one stain cycle with 12 and then another stain cycle with 30. The stainer automatically detects the carousel, so yeah, you can switch back and forth. We have a lot of users doing that. There's no settings that need to be adjusted. The stainer automatically detects that. Okay, Marcelo, I'm sorry, I missed one of your questions. Where can we get the stainer.exe help file? The stainer.exe is the simulator file. So like I said, we'll make that available to you to download. The help file should automatically load from there. Normally we don't have any issues with that. So when we send you out the simulator, everything will be there accessible. You shouldn't have any issues, and we'll send it out with some instructions on how to download that and use the simulator. Okay, I know there'll probably be some more questions, but at this time I'd also like to turn time over to Mike Farr, who's the service manager here at LA Tech Biomedical Systems. And so for those of you who may be a little bit more service oriented, he's going to just show you a few of the differences on the inside of the machine so that you know about it on the service side. So he'll cover that a little bit for the next few minutes. So give us some time to set up, and he'll take over from there. You want to show them on the simulator how to access that?
Yeah, but should we just do it on the simulator how to access it then? Okay. How do you turn that on?
Okay, we're going to share the simulator again. Okay.
Okay.
This is Mike.
Hello. Okay, I'm gonna show you a couple things. Really excited about with the new machine. We can actually test and operate pumps and solenoids, which we couldn't do before, and some other options that there is actually from the touch screen without even taking the machine apart. So if you go to the system setup screen, so you clicked on the eye to go to the system setup. Oh, double click, no, single. Okay, if you tap up here on the system setup 4 or 5 times with your finger, it actually takes you to a hidden screen that the user won't know about, but it helps us to be able to troubleshoot. So it brings you up to a service menu. Here, you've got a pump pressure. We don't want to mess with that. That's set. That will just cause nothing but problems if you start trying to mess with pump pressure speed. So we don't recommend anybody messing with that. But pump and valve control. Say you had problems with your A reagent not spraying correctly. You could say, okay, I want to run valve 3, which is say if that's the control solenoid for the A reagent. You can turn that on, and then you could actually turn pump 1 on, which will run the A pump, and this would be spraying out the A nozzle. You turn that off, turn pump 3 off. If you wanted to check the clean solenoid for that, you could actually turn valve 4 on, and pump 5 is actually the ethanol or methanol pump, the alcohol pump, turn that on, and you would now be getting methanol or ethanol sprayed out of the A nozzle. So this greatly increases the ability to troubleshoot what's really going on with the machine. The level detect, you can come in here, calibrate, zero it, zero the raw data if you had to make any adjustments. You've got continuous cyto so that you can test that and just run that for break-in or testing imbalance, those kind of things. You got a continuous stain cycle, which will count the number of cycles and just run it over and over and over again. You've got fluid control, where you can manually prime the line, 60-second prime, pattern tests, volume tests. You've got your clean with bleach, your clean with 1,000 mLs of water, methanol clean. So you've got a whole bunch of options for troubleshooting, setup, and maintaining them. You can calibrate the imbalance sensor. The imbalance sensor, instead of being a optical sensor as in the past, this is actually an accelerometer. And so you get a lot better control over the type of imbalance sensing that it's got.
Heidi, nothing is being shared.
Hello?
Yeah, the screen is black.
Oh, the screen is locked? Okay. Let me see. Okay, I'm gonna have to get Kevin in here. Okay.
You're not sharing your screen.
Okay, that's what they said.
Share my screen.
Clicked on that and it,
Do desktop.
okay, they said it was locked.
Sorry.
That's okay. There we go. Okay. Okay, sorry about that. I don't know when the screen became.
Probably when you started.
Okay. We'll start with the service menu here, which is, if we go from the system setup, we'll go from the beginning. You click on the eye, and then system setup will take you into this system setup screen. Up here where it says system setup, if you tap on the screen 4 or 5 times with your finger, it will open up a hidden menu, which is service menu, which allows you to get in and do some control and test different functions of the machine without having to use jumpers or manually measure from inside the machine. Your pump and valve control, you can individually turn the individual pumps on and actuate the individual solenoids to test the function of them. Whoa, where'd my picture go? Okay. This is essentially, you've got some options for, as an example, if your A line, A reagent wasn't spraying. You wanted to figure out what the cause was, you can actually come in here, and this is really designed for service techs. You come in here and you would turn on this pump valve control. Say your A line wasn't spraying, you could actually turn on valve 3, which is the control valve for the A line, and then actuate pump 1, which is the A pump, and it would actually spray out the A nozzle. And so this way you have the ability of being able to test the individual functions throughout the machine. That's pretty in-depth, but it does give you the options. Fluid control, you can go in and do the manual priming, the volume test, pattern test right here, not have to go through all the user functions. Clean cycles, bleach cleans, purges, just the different things that you do during setup or QC testing. Imbalance calibrate, the imbalance sensor in the previous stainers has been a optical sensor where there's a little metal arm that blocks an eye. This machine uses an accelerometer, and so this is where you would do an auto calibrate or enter the value of what the imbalance was set up for before. If you were to have to change the sensor, you could actually go in and just set the calibration. That's just the basics of what can be done in here. The level detect, you can do zero or calibrate, but if you ever had to replace a sensor, then have to go in and set the raw data to zero and then adjust the sensor so that it's reading the correct values. And then you can go through and do the zero and calibrate. So this is a function that you need to be able to get into if you were having to repair the level sensors. So that's the basic, some of the stuff in the service menu. Now I'll pull the machine apart, side panels off, so you can just see what the differences are and how it comes apart. Do we have any questions yet? Patty said, did I start over? Yes, I did. Nope, it's clear, says it. Okay. All right, I'll tear the machine apart and we'll go from there. Go to the camera and we'll let Kevin change it over. Okay, this assembly is pretty much the same as the other machine as far as side panel removal. You've got your inside screws for the top, on the sides, and on the front. So we'll turn it around and we'll take the reagent tray off first so we can see what's going on. I'm going to turn the power off for right now. So to remove the reagent tray is the same as the previous model. You've got 2, 4, 6, 7 screws. Now, whenever you take the reagent tray off, this does change the zero and can change the calibration of the machine. So when you reinstall the reagent tray, you will need to go through the zeroing and possibly the calibration process. Okay, now there's 2 screws in the bottom, right here and in the back, that holds the side panel on. Only they're not installed in this one. Easy access. Okay, with the previous machine, we used to have a cable that the prime button's hooked to, so you couldn't really lay this down like this without unhooking the the ribbon cable. But as you can see, the solenoids are now facing out for easier access, easier line routing. So here's your solenoid board. And you've got 2 check valves on the methanol and water line, and then you've got your solenoids for each one of the lines. The case front, same orientation. The bottom screws, the 5 bottom screws are missing on this. Case front has 1 cable that connects to the touchpad right here, which makes it removal quite simple. Little lever, little button you press down and just unplug it. Okay, if you look at the circuit board, it's quite small. The woodlock solenoid is new. It's actually a motor rather than a electric solenoid. Grid sensor, and the power supply is mounted up here out of the way, so you're not going to get fluid leaking onto it and problems with that. One of the nice features of this board is by every pump connector, every solenoid, there's actually little LEDs that light up as each one of those devices is being operated. So when you're testing them or watching them, you can actually physically see the little light light up and see what's happening. Pumps are essentially the same. They're mounted in the bottom on the fluid side. That makes it okay. The pumps are actually, they're down here, down in the bottom. There's 5 individual pumps for each line, which is the same as the other machines were. Pull this bit around. Okay. Sorry.
Sorry, making you dizzy.
Yeah. I thought I had it unbolted.
I think it's What's the front panel yet?
Okay, if you can see on this side, there's not much there. The computer is actually back here where the USB ports and the network cable plug in. And the power, that's where the main computer and processor is. And the cables, the motor mount is actually a extruded piece of aluminum. It's all one solid piece rather than a bunch of aluminum pieces bolted together, so it's quite rigid and works quite well. That's pretty much it. Drain tube's the same, vent tube is the same as what we've had in the past. But it should be very dependable and very easily maintained piece of equipment.
So, thanks, Mike. So are there any other questions that anybody has at this point? I think that's all we have. I hope that was very informative. If you have any questions, please ask. I see Demarius is asking a question. Oh, just saying thanks. Well, thank you for attending, and we'll make that the video of this available, as well as the simulator available on an FTP site that can be downloaded. And so, again, email us or call us or let us know if you have any questions. We enjoy doing this, and we look forward to talking to you in the future. And we're very excited about the new gram stainer and all the new features it can add. And especially, I think for you, the Spanish language is going to be very helpful in your areas to help customers be more comfortable with the instrument, and the graphics will help out a lot as well. So let us know if you have any questions, and we'll talk next time.